Why Canadians are warning about the collapse of American democracy. You know, Tucker Carlson, Fox so-called news, right-wing billionaires, a bought-off Supreme Court, polluting industries, and the politicians they all own, not to mention a widespread, you could call it a gun culture. I'd say it's just, marketing by the gun industry, have screwed up America so badly that Canada, for God's sake, Canada is worrying about us. Seriously. Vincent Rigby was the National Security and Intelligence Advisor to Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau up until about 8 months ago. And now he's joined a top-shelf group of national security experts in Canada to warn the entire country. And he's warning them about us, about the United States. This is a new report. It was prepared both for the Canadian public and the national security and police officials across the country and Parliament. Rigby and his colleagues argue that if a Donald Trump-type candidate, whether it's Trump himself or DeSantis or one of the other Trump humpers who are, high on fascism, if one of them becomes president of the United States in 2.5 years, in 2024, all bets are off. The co-director, along with Vincent Rigby, of this task force, and also an associate professor at the School of Public and International Affairs at the University of Ottawa, told the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, and this should just chill you. He said, when we think about threats, this is Canadians talking to Canadians. When we think about threats to Canada, we usually think about the Soviet military threat. We think about Al-Qaeda. We think about the rise of China. We think about the war in Ukraine. All these things are true, of course, but so is the rising threat to Canada that the U.S. possesses. That's completely new. That calls for a new way of thinking and a new way of managing our relationship with the United States, end quote. The report notes that numerous countries around the world that were democracies just 10 or 20 years ago are no longer democracies. Even Russia was briefly a democracy, a couple of years there. But this is what the report says. Again, this report put together by Canadian security experts, national security experts for the government and the people. Quote, for Canada, such developments, and it's talking about, the collapse of democracies around the world. For Canada, such developments are especially concerning because they are occurring not only in states such as Hungary, Turkey, Poland, and Brazil, but also in the United States. They list a whole bunch of concerns, from the U.S. exporting white supremacist violence to the possibility of American instability producing border problems on the Canadian border, Americans fleeing, to Canada's dependence on America for military cooperation and global political intelligence. And, this is their big fear, is that if we get a Trumpy president, that person, whether it's Trump or whether DeSantis or somebody else, will do what Trump will finally finish the job that Trump started when he was president. He tried to destroy NATO. He did some serious damage to NATO. Look at what he did to Ukraine, for example. He prepared Ukraine, softened up Ukraine, and prepared them for Russia to attack them. He attacked the European Union. He supported Brexit and went after the EU. His first overseas trip was to Saudi Arabia. He sucked up to Russia. He sucked up to China. He sucked up to North Korea. If the United States was to get another Trumpy president and was to align itself with these kind of foreign autocracies, these foreign autocrats, Canadian observers are looking at this going, America could lose its democracy, and then what about us? They're very concerned about this. Look at the damage that Donald Trump did just to our intelligence services while he was president. 2 years into his presidency, he shut down the White House Office of Cybersecurity Coordinator and fired its then director, a guy by the name of Rob Joyce. Mark Warner tweeted, Mr. President, if you really want to put America first, don't cut the White House Cybersecurity Coordinator, the only person in the federal government tasked with delivering a coordinated whole-of-government response to the growing cyber threats facing our nation. Well, he did it. And then, what we discovered during the last 2 years of the Trump administration, after he gutted the cybersecurity office, was that the Russians had literally set up housekeeping, well, not literally, but metaphorically set up housekeeping in the Commerce Department and the Treasury Department. And we have no idea what other departments they got in. We're still trying to figure it out. And it wasn't our government that discovered this. It was FireEye. It was a private company. And what happened when we discovered that the Russians were inside our offices, inside our government, because Trump had shut down the Office of White House Cybersecurity Coordinator? Well, what Trump did was then he fired Christopher Krebs, the head of the Department of Homeland Security's cybersecurity agency, decapitating both of our nation's top cybersecurity offices. And we're still dealing with the consequence of that. Canada is very concerned about this. I mean, you have 57 Republicans who just voted no on aid to Ukraine. They just voted with Putin. Rand Paul held up that aid for a whole week. What happens if America gets a new president and aligns itself with Russia? The Canadian report says, quote, "It will be a significant challenge for our national security and intelligence agencies to monitor this threat since it emanates from the same country that is by far our greatest source of intelligence." And then they go on to talk about, this growing transnational ties between right-wing extremists here and in the U.S., here being Canada, the movement of funds, the movement of people, the movement of ideas, the encouragement, the support by the media such as Fox News and other conservative media. Canadians are very concerned, and they have good reason to be. I would argue that we should be concerned too. We've got bought-off Republican stooges in Congress and state legislatures, and now they've got 6 allies on this, or at least 5 allies on the Supreme Court. They're openly trying to end democracy in the United States and replace it with autocratic neo-fascism.